Hello, everyone. It is Tea and Tequila. I'm Sarah Fox, and this is Rocky Callan. And Rocky is retreat leader, a badass boss babe, and is a writing coach. And I'm an editor and writing coach as well. And we are here today to discuss trilogies, duologies, and standalone books. You can kick it off, Rocky, with your thoughts.
All right. So I love this topic. Sarah came up with this topic.
I was really passionate.
She was very passionate. So you're probably going to get intense rants from her later on, which is going to be awesome. So here are my things around this series or duology or a standalone. This is another thing that Sarah and we have distinct thoughts about this. So I really love series. I love the trilogy. In fact, I was just telling her that I read a duology and like, there's not another book. What's happening? And because for me, I just have a problem where I can't let go. Let's be honest. So Sarah's going to probably go into all the literary reasons why you should rock it with a standalone or a duology. But I just cannot let go as a reader. I tend to get really engaged, immersed into a certain world, and I want to stay in that world. And I feel denied when the author does not allow me to stay in that world. So I love spin-off series. I love all of that. It's also a piece of, I really like to see a full cast of characters fully developed. And a lot of times for me, that's more difficult to see in a standalone book. It can happen. There's some phenomenal books that does happen, but I tend to see it more when the series it's longer. I actually love series that are way over 3 books, but
we can cover that too. It's all good.
I have a friend who she wrote a 20-book series, and I just find that to be phenomenal. I find that to be wow, you created this world that had so much conflict and character development that took 20 books to create. And she's award-winning and best-selling, all that, and it's just amazing to witness that. But there are some stories that, and I know, Sarah, you're going to pick up this conversation, so I'll stop right after I make this comment. There are some books that, because of how the industry is really pushing books for trilogies and whatnot, that you happen upon a series and it really feels like they have just watered it down and shoved stuff in to make it get to that 3-book milestone or that point. And you feel it, as a reader, you feel like you were just sold, watered down, cheap lemonade that had 1 lime in it, or 1 lemon in
sugar.
it, and no sugar. So that's disappointing to me. So I would much rather a really incredible standalone book than a watered down trilogy. So that's one thing, is when you're thinking about what you're writing and what you're reading, a lot of times they talk about the middle book being the stuff, the stuff in the middle, they just threw it in there. And I do see that. But then I also have seen books where they do it beautifully and incredibly well. But yeah, Sarah, you were talking about how you really are excited about the fact that duologies are sort of coming out again, and are coming out more frequently. So why'd you tell us why?
Okay,
because I know that you had some things to say about trilogies.
We should just tape the whole thing. It was very passionate. With duologies, I like this trend with Crooked Kingdom, with Renee's books. There's a general, it seems to be coming back in. I've talked to booksellers and they've said this too, where duologies are in, which I like because I'm an impatient person who gets angry. I do not like waiting multiple years for books like the Red Queen one. It's 4. I'm I've read half of these. I have to wait for 2 more. 2 years of my life, I have to wait for a conclusion. Harry Potter just about killed me. That was torture. It's a personal level that I don't want to wait, but also you get the classic Hunger Games syndrome, which I know people can yell at me about. I don't care. I will blow my hands up and say, like, whatever, do some Hunger Games stuff. I'll light myself on fire for you. But it was horrible, the second book. I know people like that one the best. I felt like it was filler. Why am I watching this again? And then the third book was too slow. You could have mashed that all together into 2 books, maybe even 1, if she wanted to make it long, which the industry has some issues with. But seriously, the third book was really slow. Like, and the second one was a repeat. I feel like you could have made that into 2, and it would have been beneficial. And then they take movies, which is a whole nother rant, where they take the third book, which is probably already too slow as it is, and make it in 2 parts. Ever since Harry Potter, Twilight, The Hunger Games, God knows what else is on the market that they're probably going to kill by The Hobbit. Don't even get me started on The Hobbit. That is a 1-movie show. That should have been... Let's take the smallest of the whole thing, not the ones that were actually long and worthwhile, and make it into 3 films where we throw in a love triangle and just some random stuff from the appendices. No, I'm not letting that slide. Not my watch. I would have been like, Peter, if I were on the set of that, I told the director, step down. Let's take this. So Hollywood's been greedy. I feel like the book industry is greedy. It's fine if the story naturally lends itself to it, but as you pointed out, it's so often, let's just make more money off your franchise. Like, they can write another book series or another book. And I will say series do it well, like the Lunar Chronicles. I was grateful because I found out about it when it was done. But I was still like grateful that there were...
sort of the best thing ever when you find out about them when you're done.
But they did it well because the character development was so good. And I think it was good because it was a series. And I think the books were beautiful because each one was necessary. And they were all around a different fairy tale in a genius way. And the characters and worlds developed because of it, and it didn't feel like she was trying to shove it in. It felt intentional. And my fear is, people often say, I just got signed on for 2 more books, yay, and you've already published 2. I'm like, wait, there was no game plan? Were you waiting for the publishers? I don't know how the industry works on that deep of a level, but it's like, wait, are you just adding these on because of reader popularity, or was this always intentional? That's my concern, is if it's not part of your original blueprint, is my main concern with the industry.
Right.
Like Harry Potter.
So that...
Those more books coming, people. We all love The Cursed Child. No, we didn't.
Oh my gosh. I did not read The Cursed Child, but I did hear.
I've read Wikipedia, and that was enough for me. It already killed my childhood just from Wikipedia.
So here's my thing. One thing about standalones is that I really love standalones. And I remembered as I was having this conversation with Sarah, I was like, I never read standalones. I'm like, oh yes, I have. And sometimes it's really, I love it when they allow that really strong story to have like this perfect reflection, like the beginning and the end, like it ties so beautifully together. I have read stories in every genre that are like that. And what happens in the industry, it is true, series, it's a franchise, like movies with books. If there's lots of popularity, then it goes in as a franchise and they want to milk it for all it's worth. For some authors, it's just awesome because you're actually milking brilliance and it's all incredible and it's like, yay, all around. For others, it more feels like, wow, let's just shove random stuff in here to make it fill X amount of books. And that's not nice because we are impatient human beings and we do want a conclusion, and it shouldn't be, some books are like over the span of 6 weeks, like the timeline is like 6 or 8 weeks of like what's going on in their life, but it takes us 4 years to get through those 8 weeks that they lived through. That just seems mean. That's one reason to support indie authors, because generally indie authors tend to turn out books like crazy.
They do.
So
they do like 5 a year. It's insane, or 8. It can be insane. Like, props to all the indie authors out there.
Yeah, because they're only limited by how quickly they can create and produce. So whereas the traditional publishing industry, generally they stick to a book a year, and then that's why you see some authors have sort of a couple series going on at any given time, because they can write faster, but they don't want to release like the whole series in a year, because that means that your sales are going to spike for the first year and then dip. When the sales are and the launches are separated, then you have big blasts, lots of sales. Then when book 2 or book 3, whatever comes out, then all previous book sales go up, and then the launch of that book goes up too. So it's a marketing and sales dealio, but which is really fun to talk about. But it's also really important to realize that when you are looking or analyzing a story, be really honest about what you loved about the story and what you didn't, and what you loved about the trilogy or the duology and what you didn't, and see and identify the authors that do it really well. And when you do that, then you can also see, like, as yourself a writer, what you need to master in order to do the perfect standalone, the perfect duology, the perfect trilogy. And I think that that's really important for some people. Like Brenna, I think her last name's Yonahoff. She does dark fantasy books, and usually dark fantasy books are almost always feels like they're duologies or trilogies or beyond. But she does standalones. She does series, like she does a standalone for very different worlds and very different concepts. And I remember for me, it was like breath of fresh air to be able to read a book and then know that I'm going to get a satisfying conclusion by the end of it. Because my obsession with big, long series was that I did not get that. It was delayed gratification. So I'm glad that they all exist. I wish that all that existed were awesome. They are not always awesome. But I think that the not awesome examples can give us really great, not feedback, but we can use it as analysis of what we don't want to do in our own writing. And so when I think about that, it also makes me realize, okay, for this book, I want it to be a longer series because I want it to have all these different elements in it, and I have milestones I want them to achieve and all of that. Whereas this story is a one-book story because it's a specific thing that I want to achieve in that story. I could spread it out, but I know it would be unjust for that story. So you want to know, how can you honor your story? How can you honor your voice? And then how you can honor your reader and make the best experience all around.
It's true. You want to really think about doing what's right for the story and not what you think would be cool for the industry or what all the cool kids are doing. Like, genuinely see, does this belong in a standalone? Does this belong in a trilogy? And really honor that. And often when you're selling books, they might not buy the trilogy right away. So if you're doing a trilogy, is the first book enough to just sell as the one on its own to see if the publisher likes it in the public? Because sometimes they'll cut things. I've heard stories of authors wrote trilogy. They wrote the second book, and the publisher just cut the third one. And then those poor readers, hopefully they did indie, they just are left with only those 2 books. Also, there's higher withdrawal, another side effect. When I was done the Lunar Chronicles, I got so much withdrawal after a series because you're so immersed in the world. You're like, what is this earth that I live on right now in 2016? Like, if you read a standalone, you can bounce back more easily. You don't get that heartbreaking feeling with the book. But with this series, especially if it's a longer one, you don't want to leave. It's even harder.
See, that's, I think, why I really, because I'm a glutton for pain. I'm like, I want to be heartbroken. Like, I want to be ripped to shreds and be like, what is this life? Why is so-and-so no longer in it? So I have had books. This is just another pathetic thing that I do.
It's not pathetic,
no, it's not.
Sure.
It's awesome and book nerdy to the max. So I remember I was reading a series, and one of my favorite characters in the third book died. And then I literally just stopped reading the book.
You're like, it's done.
And I'm like, there's nothing left for me here. And it was totally like the secondary character that really had no like plays, not no place in the plot. He had place in the plot, but I was just so attached. And then I was like, I can't live without so-and-so, so I'm just going to put the whole thing aside. But yeah, you get so invested. And that's why I really like, though, is I think that's why I like the longer series, because I like to be so invested that by the time I finish the book, I'm like, oh, there's nothing else for me. You know? It's like true heartbreak. And then, of course, I find, you know, my next great love, and it's a wild love affair all over again. And then I'm heartbroken again. Again, glutton for pain. So maybe that's a personal thing I have to work through.
No, it's good. It's good. You just have to brace yourself when you get really involved in a long one.
Exactly. You have to brace yourself, y'all.
Also, there's higher expectations with the ending, though. If I've spent 7 books with you, you better stand and deliver, to quote Adamant, because you better be showing up. Because the end of Harry Potter, I'm like dissing all the popular things. I swear I'm not a hipster. It's like, I was like, that's it. I've worked through my, like, 10 years of my life, or whatever amount it was, to get to this point, and you leave me with a fan fiction type thing? No. Unacceptable. So there's more pressure if you're doing a series to really end it well. You better deliver.
There's so much pressure also to recognize that depending on the book, there has to be escalating conflict. So if the conflict that was happening in book 2 is like powerhouse, amazing, and then book 3 like whimpers along, excuse me, that's not acceptable. And so with each book, the stakes have to be higher. And if you can't make them higher, if they just even out, then you're not doing something right. Something's not, or if the resolution is not as powerful as it was in an earlier book, then why waste your time? Why waste anybody's time with that? So I agree. When it's a longer, there are more books in a series, with each book, that requirement of an epic ending is just going to be there. So you have to, like you said, stand and deliver. And are you ready to stand and deliver?
Can you handle it? Can you handle not making a watered down second book? That's what we wanted.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I think that covers our duology, trilogy, and series. Please comment in the YouTube below, or in the blog comments, or wherever you found this video, what your favorite standalones and trilogies or series are, and we'd be happy to discuss them with you. So we hope you have an awesome day, and we'll talk to you later.